911, what is the address of your emergency?
I'm hiding in a closet at the neighbor's house. I'm scared to death.
I was scared, thinking that he was coming in to kill him.
This is the voice of Rachel Hendricks, a woman who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Rachel was one of 3 friends invited to Amanda Colley's upmarket house in a quiet suburb on an ordinary Thursday morning in August 2015. They were there to comfort Amanda about the breakdown of her marriage. Rachel could not have predicted that not long after she arrived, she would be barricading herself in a closet and pleading for her life. She was shot in the arm, but she managed to escape. Amanda and another friend were not so lucky. Lindy Dobbins was shot 3 times. Amanda herself was shot 9 times. Their lives ended in a hectic burst of tragedy, both leaving young children behind. These families were ripped apart, but why? What was the reason for this awful attack, devastating a quiet community? Let's dive into the tragic story of Amanda Colley, for whom the help of the courts came far too late. Amanda was living in her old family house in Mirabella, St. Augustine, Florida. This was a pleasant, upscale community, chosen by her and her husband James Colley Jr. as an idyllic location to raise their children. Mirabella's community website describes it as resort-style living close to home. And to all appearances, the Colleys were living a luxury Floridian life of bliss. Neighbors recall watching James play with their children in the cul-de-sac. Trey, who in 2015 was 6, and Avery, who was 4. The family lived a convivial, social existence. They often had the neighbors over for drinks and parties. Even when the couple began to drift apart, they seemed to do so politely. Whatever went on behind closed doors was just that, kept hidden from public view. It is for this reason that the events of August 27, 2015 came as such a devastating surprise to the entire neighborhood. Around 9 a.m. on August 27th, Rachel Hendricks was told that something was going on with her friend Amanda. They'd been friends for a few years, having met at a mutual acquaintance's party, and the two of them, together with Lindy Dobbins, had become a close trio. They would watch each other's kids and go to the neighborhood pool together. In moments of distress, too, they would call on each other. So it made sense that Lindy and Rachel got involved on this fatal morning. That morning, Rachel dropped her kids off at school and then went to a hairdresser friend's house to get her hair done.
Did there come a time that you were notified that something was going on in Amanda's house?
Yes.
And who notified you of that?
Lindy.
After her hair appointment, Rachel went over to Amanda's house.
I went inside. I walked inside and walked up to Amanda and Lindy. Amanda was crying, and I just gave her a big hug and told her that it was going to be okay. I ransacked home, a mess everywhere.
Amanda's usually pristine Mirabella home had been trashed overnight while Amanda was out. When she'd returned at 9 a.m., she found it in a state of disarray, a terrifying thing to come home to in any circumstances. But this was not an ordinary break-in. Nothing had been stolen, only rifled through and torn apart, as though the culprit had been looking for evidence of something. Perhaps she already realized how much danger she was in then. Perhaps that's why she called multiple friends over to be there with her, thinking of safety in numbers. But there was no such thing. There were 4 people in the home that morning: Amanda, Lindy, Rachel, and Lamar Dubberly. Lamar Dubberly was Amanda's boyfriend. Amanda had been formally separated from her husband James since June, and she'd met Lamar in April.
The relationship started professionally, progressed into a personal relationship, and then we began seeing each other in June 2015.
Lamar was ex-military. He'd attended the U.S. Naval Academy and the Marine Corps University. He'd also worked at the Pentagon. He was an impressive man, and he met Amanda when they were both working corporate management at Fanatics, a sportswear company. As Amanda's relationship with her husband broke down, she grew closer to Lamar, and they began seeing each other after the separation. As a result, it was Lamar she called on that fateful Thursday morning when she found her house ransacked and her belongings rifled through. Lamar, Lindy, and Rachel were all there to comfort Amanda and make her feel safer in her own home again. Amanda showed them the damage to her property. Then Lamar showed Rachel the damage to the garage while Lindy and Amanda were talking upstairs. Rattled, Lamar and Rachel went back into the living room, unaware that the day's trouble had only just begun.
Standing in the living room, and there was a loud shatter of glass, a small explosion, like a bang. So I looked out back and I saw Mr. Colley standing in the backyard with a handgun shooting into the living room.
The attacker was none other than Amanda's estranged husband, James. He was shooting at Rachel and Lamar in the house that his family had previously shared so seemingly happily together, shattering the windows and aiming to kill.
I, again, was trying to figure out, I said, what the hell was that? And he said, that's gunfire.
I was standing approximately here. Pop. It did not sound like a gunshot to me initially. I picked up the first bullet hole. The second bullet hole appeared closer to where I was standing.
James was aiming the gun from the backyard. He seemed in a rage, shouting a question.
Where is he? Where is he?
Lamar rapidly realized that James, Amanda's estranged husband, was looking for him. He was Amanda's new boyfriend, and if James was here out of jealousy, which Lamar thought likely, then Lamar was in severe danger. James had a gun and was not afraid to use it.
I thought that I was the target individual, and so I wasn't armed. I left.
Lamar yelled for everyone to run. Then he ran out of the house through the garage, ducking under the garage door and running between two houses in the cul-de-sac. Amanda and Lindy were further from the exit. They had nowhere to go but into the master bedroom. Rachel ran up into the master bedroom too. Amanda hid herself in the bathroom, while Rachel and Lindy barricaded themselves in the closet.
I wedged my foot up underneath the door and had my left hand on the doorknob.
Lindy hid behind a chest of drawers inside the master closet, while Rachel tried to barricade the closet door as best she could. Meanwhile, James entered the house. If he was looking for Lamar, clearly he hadn't realized that Lamar had already escaped, because James was coming up the stairs, gun in hand.
I heard Mr. Colley in the bathroom in a conversation with Amanda. Lindy had called 911.
This 911 call was at 10:36 a.m. The women were in serious trouble, and James was in a frenzy, screaming at Amanda, demanding, "Where is he?" He didn't realize he'd already scared Lamar off, and that the only people who remained in the house were his estranged wife and her friends. Amanda said she didn't know.
Amanda was, very upset, crying, saying that he's not in here. I don't know. He's not in here. At one point, I believe Mr. Colley came over and tried to get into the closet door, and Amanda said, "He's not in there. That's Rachel and Lindy." And at that time, I heard a shot, and that was all I heard of Amanda.
Rachel, terrified, was hiding in the closet with Lindy on the phone to 911. They didn't know what had happened to Amanda, if her husband had shot and killed her, and James was looking to wreak revenge on someone who wasn't there, Lamar Dubberly. What would he do when he discovered that Lamar was long gone?
Mr. Colley was trying to get into the bathroom door, saying, open the door, I'm going to shoot." So he shot through the door, and the bullet grazed my arm.
Fearing for her life and in pain from the bullet wound, Rachel backed away from the door, allowing James to slam it open. But James wasn't interested in Rachel at all. He stalked straight past her and went for Lindy, who was on her knees.
Heard Lindy say, "Oh my God, no," and I ran out of the closet and heard a shot.
Rachel ran out of the house looking for someone to help. She managed to escape into a mutual friend's home. Meanwhile, Lamar had stumbled across someone else who also called 911 for help. But by the time the police arrived on the scene, James Colley Jr. had fled, leaving a trail of destruction behind him. Rachel had been wounded in the arm. Lamar, luckily, was unharmed, but both Lindy and Amanda were dead. Lindy had been shot 3 times, and Amanda had been shot 9 times. James had shot her once before breaking into the closet where Lindy and Rachel were hiding, and then 8 more times after he'd killed Lindy, first using a 9mm handgun, shooting her 3 times with it until it was out of bullets, and then using his .45, which he'd brought as a backup. This showcased a terrible level of rage against his estranged wife. But why? He'd been looking for Lamar, jealous of his wife's new relationship, but how had it got to this awful point? How did this tragedy unfold? Not much is known about the beginning of James and Amanda's relationship. Amanda was 36 in 2015, a year older than James. She was born in Orlando, Florida, and had a successful professional life and lots of friends. James seemed ordinary himself. He worked in the mortgage industry and led a successful life alongside his professional wife. He was much loved by his sister, Crystal.
Till the moment he woke up, till the moment he went to bed, he spent with his children. He taught them to swim.
But this loving father had a dark side and a dark past.
There ever a time when your mom acted violently towards your dad in the presence of Jalen?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
There was a time my father had been having a marital affair. My mother was called and informed. I saw her sitting on the stairs with a baseball bat. My mom began hitting my father with a baseball bat. And my mom entered the house to see us for Thanksgiving, and her and my father got into another confrontation. My dad wasn't going to let her come into the home. And my mother grabbed a knife.
James witnessed this aggression around his father's extramarital affair by his mother, to the extent that his mother physically attacked his father where he could see it. Maybe this did something to his psyche, as a defense lawyer would certainly argue. But James and Amanda were separated by August 27, 2015, and had been separated for months. James was also seeing someone else. His rage-filled attack was the final awful event in a long line of escalating aggression against Amanda, who just wanted to escape an increasingly toxic marriage. James expressed disproportionate jealousy over Lamar's presence in Amanda's life, despite the separation. A few months before the murders, a neighbor sent him a photo of Lamar mowing Amanda's lawn without a shirt on. He reacted with fury, commencing a barrage of abusive texts and voicemails to Amanda that continued until the day of the murders. He texted her, "Oh, and your boyfriend has been parking at the playground and walking around the back. The whole neighborhood knows. You should just have him park out front like a man. Yeah, everyone knows what you are. Don't worry, I will speak with him face to face sooner than later." Amanda responded, "He's not my boyfriend like I've told you before. He helps me with the yard work, paint, moving furniture, etc." To which James replied, "So why doesn't he park in the driveway if he isn't hiding? And I guess he is married, right? I have a pic of him." These text messages were veiled threats, and he'd acted on these threats before. Amanda had a domestic violence injunction against him, and he'd already broken that injunction by taking her clothes from her house and setting them on fire in the yard. In fact, he was in court for this violation on the morning of August 27th. appearing calm and collected less than an hour before he so horrifically murdered his wife and her friend. James could be contrary. The day before the murders, August 26th, he also texted Amanda, "Please try to start forgiving me so we can move on. I really miss you and our family being together." But he followed this conciliatory text with another deeply intrusive act. At about 4 a.m. on August 27th, he broke into her house, looking for evidence that she was seeing someone new. He found this evidence, including adult toys and men's clothing. He ransacked the house in a rage. This was what Amanda would come home to at 9 a.m. This was why she would call Rachel and Lindy, fatally, to join her. That same day, after vandalizing her belongings, he texted her, "You're an awesome person. Don't take me from my kids. It's all I have. Call me, or I am going to come find you." This was one of the last communications he would have with her before killing her. His threat came true, though she did call him and argued with him on the phone at 9:41 a.m., about 10 minutes after he left the courthouse. This didn't stop him from coming to find her anyway. From the courthouse, he drove to a gas station, then to his sister's house where he'd been staying. He then drove back to the same gas station to buy gas before heading straight to Amanda's house. Somewhere on the way, he must have picked up guns and ammunition, because by the time he arrived at Amanda's, he was fully armed with 2 handguns, a 9mm and a .45. On the way, James called his father. His father was outside when he took the call, and a nearby dog walker overheard it. She testified she heard James's father pleading, "Please, please, son, come back and get your truck. Everybody knows what you've been through." And the person on the other end of the call replied, "I just can't take this anymore." This is when he arrived at Amanda's house. He parked on an adjacent street and approached the house from the rear. But he discarded all caution in shooting straight at Rachel and Lamar in the living room. He was a man on a terrible mission, and he wouldn't stop until 2 people were dead. When he'd killed Lindy and Amanda, James fled. But with 2 witnesses, Rachel and Lamar unharmed and Rachel mildly injured, the police knew to search for him immediately. A manhunt commenced, and he was found in Norton, Virginia that same night, when another driver called 911. She said she'd been nearly run off the road by a man driving recklessly. She said, "He has been stopped in the middle of the road. I had to stop. He was on me. I couldn't even. My kids are scared. Yeah, my mom had to sit in the back of my car to keep my kids calm. They're scared, and I have a newborn that's just 4 pounds." Norton police stopped James in his car. He possessed several firearms. They ran a check and found him wanted for homicide in Florida, and he was arrested. He was charged with the first-degree murder of Amanda Colley, the first-degree murder of Lindy Dobbins, the attempted first-degree murder of Rachel Hendricks, the attempted first-degree murder of Lamar Dubberly, burglary with an assault or battery, burglary of a dwelling, and aggravated stalking after an injunction. At trial, the defense argued that the attack had not been premeditated and that James had been in an aggravated emotional state, under the influence of Ambien or alcohol or other drugs, and experiencing parasomnia, according to a psychiatrist, effectively sleepwalking. However, this defense was severely weakened by his presence in court only an hour and a half before the killings. At this court hearing, he denied being under the influence of any intoxicants and responded sensibly and reasonably to the injunction proceedings. This undermined the defense's later case that because he had taken drugs and drunk alcohol the night before, alongside taking an Ambien to sleep, he was in an altered state. In fact, there was footage to the contrary. The jury unanimously found James Colley Jr. guilty on all counts. They also provided a unanimous recommendation for the death penalty based on 4 aggravating factors proven beyond reasonable doubt. that he was previously convicted of another capital or violent felony, which applied because he had committed multiple murders and attempted murders at once, that he committed the murders while also engaging in burglary, that each murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and that he committed each murder coldly, callously, and with premeditation. The medical examiner testified that Amanda was aware throughout the entire shooting process, being shot 9 times before she died. This was a truly horrific crime. James was sentenced to death in November 2018. He appealed, but in 2020, his sentence was upheld. He remains on death row, and his 2 children with Amanda are now living with their grandparents. Lindy Dobbins' 3 children, who were 16, 10, and 9 at the time of the murders, remain with their father. What do you think about this awful story? Could James's attack have been prevented? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe, keep up with our channel, and we will see you very soon on The Decoder.